Hi, everybody. Welcome to Corelight Spiritual Weather Report. It's June 26th, 2022, and this is Brad, and I'm in the United States, and my beloved Leslie is in South Africa, and I'm very happy to be here with you. I always look forward to these calls each month. It's a highlight for me, so thank you for joining us. As always, I welcome everybody, people who've been with Corelight for a long time and people who are newer or brand new. Thank you so much for joining us. So we just had the solstice a few days ago, and I wonder if you felt the power of it like I did. We're still in the effects of it, so I thought I would mention it. And it was very, very powerful. The solstice is always a reminder for us that life on planet Earth is about balancing opposites. It's the longest day of the year for the Northern Hemisphere and the shortest day for the Southern. And so this is our reminder to balance the extremes in life, to balance the light and the dark and all the polarities that we face. And the world is so polarized right now, as I know you know. So we're going to be focusing on that more today. And I have a practice around that to share with you, which I'm looking forward to. And I also wanted to share that I'm aware we're clearing new levels of ancestral karmas and collective karmas right now. It explains a lot of the intensity that's happening and some of the strange or unusual things that are happening in our lives and in our bodies. Like, for example, I know quite a few people for whom sleep has been especially erratic lately, and I include myself in that. And if you haven't been experiencing this, you're not having intense and unusual things happening in your life, just consider yourself blessed. But if it does happen to you, it might be helpful to know that you're not alone. We're all working with so much more energy than we realize. The clearing of the shadow is so much deeper than we're aware of, both collectively and personally, and especially at night, which is why our sleep can be so erratic. So I'm aware that a lot of people are releasing many, many generations of ancestral karma. I've been experiencing it personally, and basically these are people in our bloodlines, of our family origin, who lived what you could say was an unfulfilling life. Maybe they might have had an accident or an illness, or their life was cut short in some way, or they were damaged in some way. And a lot of this is about clearing victim-tyrant consciousness. And I think sometimes we forget how blessed we are in this lifetime and how hard our ancestors had it at a physical level. Whether they were maybe pioneers, or they were in wars, or they faced some kind of medical challenges, or whatever it was, that life was not there to support them somehow, that their life could be cut short, and that life was brutal. And I think, it's important to remember that was true much of the time for our ancestors. So I think it's good to just be aware that this is happening, and to not worry if you find yourself feeling a bit strange now and then for no apparent reason, for nothing you can, no reason you can name. This is about the inner work that's happening. It's about the shadow that we're clearing on the inner planes that we may not be aware of. So that being said, I just thought that was important to name, but let's talk about, I want to share with you the themes that we're going to be discussing today. The first one is our worldly path is our spiritual path. The second one is walking the razor's edge in surreal times. And another one is that, like I said, we're going to do an exercise to practice holding the tension between polarities. Another topic that I got loud and clear we needed to talk about today is Roe versus Wade and looking at that from a spiritual perspective. And for those who don't know about the United States news, on Friday, the Supreme Court here overturned the 1973 decision that gave women constitutional right to have an abortion. And I think it's fair to say that there's a certain amount of chaos on the inner planes around that. So we'll talk more about this from a spiritual perspective. As I said, it's very supercharged. So if you get triggered during our discussion, I invite you not to hang up, to please just stay to the end if you can, because I promise you that there's a progression in our conversation about this today, and we're going to take this to a higher level. So please just bear with me, and I invite your forgiveness in advance. Another one of the important topics for today is tolerance. Another one is paradox. Another one is reframing the argument. And another one is finding inner peace amidst intense shadow. So for anybody who might be new to the calls, here's how they work. I start by offering guided meditation, and then I'll speak about the prevailing energies that are affecting us, and also about the spiritual principles that are most helpful for us right now. And then we'll have time for questions and answers. And we close the sessions with a brief guided meditation or a prayer or whatever we have time for. And if you need to leave before the call ends, it's okay. You can always listen to the recording later. We do send out the link to our email list, and it's also posted on YouTube. So before we start our guided meditation, there were just a couple of quick housekeeping things that I wanted to mention. Leslie's birthday is coming up in early August, and as always, we have a little celebration of some kind, and this year we're planning to celebrate by offering 25% off of everything in the Sacred Art Gallery. And that'll be for a few weeks leading up to her birthday. So we'll also be offering some new pieces of Leslie's sacred art, which is very exciting. I love these pieces we're going to be sharing with you. I don't think anybody's seen them before. And that includes, one of the things is we've just created a new set of 6 greeting cards of the Golden Orb painting, which is the most popular of Leslie's paintings on the store. So if you like that painting, you can get a set of 6 of those greeting cards. And if you've been eyeing a piece of art, this would be a great opportunity. You'll not only be getting the transmission of healing energy out into the world, that Leslie imbues into her art, but you'll also be saving 25%, and also you'll be supporting Seeds of Light's children's art program, which is for the kids that we support in rural South Africa. Because we give a percentage of all the proceeds to that program. And we started the children's art program because Leslie discovered long ago that when you teach a child art, they learn that they're not empty inside. They know that they always have something inside that they can draw on for a creative solution to life's problems. And the program is going really, really well. It's kind of amazing, actually. It started off over 20 years ago, and it was so small, and we taught just a group of kids who would just show up, and it was under a tree. Every week we would teach, and now, we aren't involved at that level anymore. There are other people teaching, but we have many teachers now, and there are hundreds of children, many hundreds of children, and the program is in schools, and we have our own building to teach the art, and so it's very exciting. And, if you've been considering getting a piece of art, this is the time to do it, because we could really use your support for the children's art program. And the gallery, if you don't know, is at corelight.org. You can find it on the main menu under Sacred Art. And we will be sending out emails about it. We hope it's going to start on July 12th, and it'll go through Leslie's birthday on August 12th. So please be on the lookout for that. I also mentioned last month that we are installing a new software platform for our courses. It's a learning management system, and it's moving along really well, and I'm planning to start the Spiritual Warrior Training course in September or October this year. It's going to be a 5-week course, and we'll keep you posted on the details, and it'll include new material that nobody's ever seen before, including some archival video footage of Leslie teaching, and I'll be offering several live Zoom calls through the course. So we're very excited about it, and we also plan to roll more courses out after that once everything's up and running, and we'll keep you posted on all of that. But meanwhile, if you're interested, you can go to our website at corelight.org, and you can read about them on the courses page. So please stay tuned. There'll be more information coming about all of that. All right. Without further ado, why don't we go ahead and start our guided meditation. I invite you to just sit comfortably, quietly, and close your eyes. Take a few long, slow, deep breaths. And just relax. Just let go. Breathing in the light and the life force that surrounds you. Breathing out any tension that you might be holding on to in your body. Breathing in the present moment. Breathing out any worries about the past or the future. You may know this already, but at some level of her being, Leslie is overlighting these calls, and there's a transmission of healing energy that comes through from another level. So as you breathe and relax, we invite you to just receive that. And in fact, we invite you to be meditative throughout the call, even when we're talking, and receive the transmission. And just remember that even though we do a lot of talking on these calls, really probably the most important thing is the energetic experience and the transmission of love that we receive on these calls. Very uplifting. So just breathing and relaxing, receiving this transmission of love and healing energy. Whether you're with us live today or you're listening to the recording in the future, it really doesn't matter. We're all part of this field. We're all connected. Time and space don't really exist except in the third dimension. So we invite you to tune in to those other levels of reality beyond time and space, where we're connected in the heart and in love. And whether you feel it or not, the transmission is still happening. It doesn't matter if you feel it. You can just set the intention that you'd like to receive. And just breathe and relax. Letting go. And as always, one of the most important things is to relax our muscles. This is the foundation of inner peace and the awakening of our consciousness is the relaxation of the body. So as always, I invite you to start this meditation by feeling the warm, viscous liquid like honey pouring over the top of your head, relaxing all the muscles that it touches. Feel it relaxing your whole scalp and pouring down over your forehead and eyebrows, relaxing your eyes, feeling relax all of the little tiny muscles that surround your eyes, the temples, cheeks, nose, mouth, jaw. Just breathing and letting go of any tension you're holding on to in your head. Pouring over the back of your head. Just relaxing completely. And feeling the honey pouring over your neck and your shoulders, all the way down your arms to your hands and fingertips, relaxing all of those muscles. Feeling this warm honey pouring over your torso, your upper back, your chest, down to the lower back, down to the abdomen. Just letting go, feeling all the tension washing away, pouring over your pelvis, down your hips, your buttocks, down your legs, all the way down the ankles, feet, and toes. Deeply, deeply relaxing and letting go. And now I'll be quiet for a few moments while you scan your body again from head to toes. I invite you to just breathe light into any places where you might be holding on to some tension in your body, and feel that tension leaving you with each exhale as you breathe in the light into those areas. Let's put our attention on the root chakra. And that's the center at the base of the spine. In case you might be new to this work, it's an energy center, and when you put your attention there, you can just feel it automatically opening and relaxing and releasing. So just very gently put your attention on the root and drop your grounding cord down into the center of the earth, connecting with the core of the earth and intermingling your energy with the energy at the core of the earth. Feeling the grounding quality, the anchoring quality of the earth energy. Feeling gravity gently pulling you towards the earth, and feel supported by Mother Earth in the form of the chair and the floor. Just relaxing and letting go completely into the arms of Mother Earth like a little baby being cradled in its mother's arms. Just feeling completely relaxed, safe, warm, nurtured, loved, completely held by Mother Earth. Such a beautiful feeling to just completely relax and know that you're safe. And just allow that deep letting go. And now, let's draw the earth energy back up into the body through the soles of the feet. Drawing it up the legs. And let's draw the energy all the way up the core of our body, the central column, in Sanskrit known as the Sushumna. Just feel that beautiful energy rising up through the core, which is like a beautiful tube of light. It sits right in front of the spine. I know most of you know this, but for those who are new, and it's okay if you're new and you're not feeling this, just follow along the best you can and you'll receive the benefits anyway. You can visualize it if you can't feel it. And so we're drawing the energy up the core all the way up to the top of the head. And let's allow the energy to open the crown chakra, which is the energy center at the top of the head, sits on our head like a crown that a king or a queen would wear. And just feel your crown chakra naturally opening as you put your attention there. It's called a 1,000-petaled lotus. And you can feel the petals of the flower opening up one by one, just unfurling themselves in a beautiful way. And sending your core energy up and out the top of your head, all the way out into the celestial realms. Feeling your connection with the cosmos. And so I invite you to hold this connection, hold this energy of earth and your body and the celestial realms all together at the same time. And feel how your body is the center point between heaven and earth. And just feel yourself in suspended animation between heaven and earth, like you're floating somehow. Just held in this beautiful lightness, like anti-gravity is supporting you and you're just sort of hovering above the earth, but you're connected to it. And I invite you to put your attention in the heart center, the heart chakra. The heart center is the center of the body, the midpoint. And so you can also say that it's the midpoint between heaven and earth. Your very own heart being the connection point between heaven and earth. So just feel that. Just you don't have to think about it. Just be aware of it. Just feel it. Be in your body and feel that midpoint of the heart. And feel the love energy that bubbles up from inside the chest. It's like a wellspring, natural wellspring of love, of joyful, loving energy that fills us up if we allow it. So I invite you now to just feel that and visualize it like a little bubbling wellspring inside your chest cavity, filling you up with the energy of love and joy. You can give it a color if you like. Pink, perhaps. Soft, rosy pink. Color of rose quartz. Or maybe it's green. Beautiful emerald green. Whatever you like. And just feel it permeating your whole chest cavity and radiating out, filling you up with this love energy, your whole body and your whole aura, completely filling up. As you do this, you might find yourself starting to smile, because the love and the joy energy does sometimes put a smile on your face. And that's often a way of supporting the process. To fill yourself up with love and joy, you can smile, because it's a little trick where we trick the brain into releasing the happy hormones. When we smile, the brain thinks there's something to be happy about. So it's amazing. It's happening to me right now. Just by smiling, you feel yourself flooded with these happy hormones of joy and love. And it's okay if you're not feeling in the mood for that right now. I'm not forcing you to do anything you don't want to do, but it sure does feel good. So while you hold this space, just continue to hold this heart center as the center point between heaven and earth, feeling your body suspended and feeling the love energy generating, self-generating from within, I'm going to say a prayer and an invocation for our call today. We call on the Great Spirit, Divine Mother, Father God, the self that we all are. We invite in all of our highest guides and teachers, all the angels and the beings who surround us in the highest love and support. We ask you to please surround us in a cocoon of beautiful golden white light and healing energy and love today. Join our sacred circle and guide our conversation into the highest love and the highest wisdom. And hold our hands so that we may walk into our soul's highest purpose. And we're so grateful. We're grateful knowing that this is so. We're grateful for the time that we get to share together. Whether you're present with us now or listening in the future, we're all part of this field of love. So we're grateful to be able to share the field of love with each other in community. Even though it's virtual community, it's not the same as being in person together, but sure is nice to feel the field. I love these calls and to be with you. And I hope you're able to feel it as well. So we offer our gratitude and we offer a blessing to this earth, to everyone on the planet, all life forms who are suffering from war, injustice, hunger, illness, disease, poverty, destruction of the environment, pollution. We send love and light to the whole planet, to all of the natural world. And we're deeply grateful for this opportunity to be incarnate in these beautiful bodies at this most amazing time in human evolution as we move into the new paradigm of the heart, even though it's challenging. We're so grateful to be given the gift of this beautiful blue planet. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Alalaho. Thank you, everybody. And when you feel ready, you can slowly begin to stretch, move your body a little bit. And you can slowly begin to bring your energy back into the room and slowly begin to open your eyes when you feel ready. Okay, well, gosh, welcome again, everybody. Let's dive in. There's a lot to discuss today, and if you need to leave the call early, I totally understand. No worries. Like I said, the call's recorded, so you can always listen to the rest later. The first topic I wanted to speak with you about is that every month when I meditate on these themes to discuss for the Spiritual Weather Report, I'm always shown a few of the key spiritual principles that we're focusing on as a collective, and as well as some of the practical, the worldly issues that we're facing, and how to apply the spiritual principles to the worldly issues. And I think one of the most important spiritual truths to remember that we don't necessarily talk about much is that there's no difference between our spiritual path and our worldly path. So our worldly path is the spiritual path. And I know that that's one of the most primary spiritual truths, but I think the reminder is good from time to time, just to name it. And it's all about remembering that we incarnate into these physical bodies and we have these seemingly very real physical experiences in the world, and hopefully we remember to apply the spiritual principles to the physical experience. And it just means that no matter what we're experiencing in the physical world, there's nothing to worry about, and we're not lost. And Spirit hasn't forgotten about us or abandoned us, which we may feel. So as long as we remember this primary truth, that the worldly path is the spiritual path, that we come here to have experiences and to learn lessons, then there's no getting lost. We remember that we're not human beings having occasional spiritual experiences. That greater part of us knows that at our core, we're spiritual beings and we're having a human experience. So the human being is not who we really are. It's just the tip of the iceberg, and our true nature is that vast and eternal and timeless self that we are. So it seems like for the past 2 years, with each passing month, there's been an increasing intensity. Everything's more charged. The polarizations of the world are increasing all the time. And so while that's true for the collective, I know that with this community, the Corelight community, that those of you who are participating in these calls included, we're practicing not buying into that polarization. I mean, we might get sucked into the dramas from time to time, but we're on the path of raising our consciousness, and we're committed to applying those spiritual principles to the worldly situations. We're learning more and more to maintain a witness to all of it, and we're more able to experience what's happening with this growing sense of what you could call a spiritual detachment. And so we're doing our best to remember the middle way. And I think that's the key. It's about remembering to remember, right? Remembering to remember who we really are. We're the pure awareness. We're the pure love. And when the body dies, we don't die. We live on. So I don't know about how you're feeling, but in some ways, I'm finding it easier and easier to maintain a witness and to walk that razor's edge between the polarities. And on the other hand, with the way things are going in the world and with how so many people are behaving and acting out, in some ways it also feels more challenging. So I wonder if you're in the same position I am. I mean, sometimes things are so extreme that it's like we get shocked into our emotions, and then it's easier to forget. And we might lose the witness for a little while, and we fall into worry or fear or anger or whatever it is, and we go down that downward spiral of emotions. But then, on the other hand, there's something about that extremeness that is making this world, it seems so surreal at times. And in that way, it's easier to practice witnessing because we can look at things with more detachment. So I don't know about you, but I find myself using that word surreal more and more every day. We're just living in such surreal times, paradoxical times. And, you know, I chuckle about it. It's funny in one way, but I don't mean to make light of some of the very tragic things that are happening in our world. And there's plenty to be upset about and plenty to grieve about and even to feel fear about. And there are a lot of people suffering, and, you know, they deserve our prayers and compassion, and the animals and the ecosystems as well, the whole of the natural world. So I'm not making light of that. It's just that we're being invited by these world events, and especially by the media, more and more and more, into separation and into fear, and especially into debates that divide us. And so this is one of the reasons I felt we should talk about paradox today. A paradox, most of you probably know, it's something that has contradictory qualities inherent in it. And isn't that the truth of the times we're living in? It seems like the kind of issues that are arising are just loaded with paradox, right? They're endlessly debatable. Everyone has valid points to back up their positions. The problems seem unsolvable. The arguments seem unresolvable. The questions seem unanswerable. And we've talked about this before on many of the spiritual weather reports. We've talked about how there's always one set of facts, but there are many different spins on the one set of facts. So basically, everybody's right because everybody has their own set of facts to prove their point. So, you know, for 8 billion people on the planet, there are 8 billion right people. And how can that possibly be? I mean, isn't that a paradox? Like, that's the definition of a paradox. So we're living in the midst of it. And so today I'd like to name some of the examples of how this works. But before I do, I feel like I want to preface this with an invitation to all of us, for us to remember the witness. The witness is that part of us that sees the bigger picture, right? And it knows how to practice spiritual detachment. It's the part of us that knows how to hold the tension between two sides of the polarity. And it's the part of us that remembers that when we can practice that and we're successful at holding the tension between two sides of a polarity, that's when we allow room for a third option to manifest. And the third option is always something unknown. It's nothing we can know with our left brain, with our logical mind. We won't know how the polarity is going to resolve itself. But the third option is always the transcendent option. It goes beyond the mind. So I'd like to invite you to join me with a spiritual exercise. And if you're multitasking and you're able to stop for a few moments, this would be a good time to just sit quietly and close your eyes. And if you're driving or if you can't stop what you're doing, that's okay. You can just follow along to the best of your ability. It's okay either way. It's just that it's a little more powerful if you can stop for a few moments. So I invite you to just pause and sit and close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Let's go back into that meditative state that we were just in. Just relax. Invite in your witness. Call in the witness self. We all have a witness self. Just invite in that energy. It's the energy of unconditional love. It's the energy of the heart center, and you can even tap your heart chakra area right in the middle of your chest. You can invite your energy to focus there. So sometimes it's helpful. You can, in your mind's eye, you can visualize yourself at the fulcrum of a seesaw, the balance point between the imbalances. And just as you breathe, consciously call in your unconditionally loving awareness. Invite in that witness self. And what I'm going to do while you hold this space is I'm going to name some polarities. And I invite you to make the commitment to hold the tension between the polarities. When we can hold the tension between the polarities, we raise our vibration into a transcendent state, and we just do it to the best of our ability. If you find that you're super emotional, like you're just really angry or really sad about something, that's also okay. And there's plenty happening in the world. to make us emotional. And if that's the case for you, you can just be with that. You know, it's okay if you can't really do the exercise as you might like to because you're so supercharged about an issue. That's totally okay. With this exercise, what you're doing is you're just, as you breathe and relax, you're just going to notice what emotions are passing through you. And you just feel them and welcome them and name them. Feel them pass through, and then to the best of your ability, you let them go. And I know some people, this won't be possible for you if you're super emotional. So you might want to, jump up and scream and run around, or beat a pillow or cry or, whatever you want to do. It's all okay. The exercise is not about suppressing or denying your emotions. That does not work. And if you're not feeling as emotional as all that, what also helps is to breathe. Just continue to breathe your way through this exercise. Continue to take long, slow, deep breaths. So no matter what it looks like for you, this is a great way for us as a community to make a difference in the collective. We contribute our transcendent vibration as much as we're able to hold on to it, or vent our emotions as much as we're able to, whatever it is for you. So whether or not you're venting emotions, or maybe you're calm, as I name the polarities, I invite you to just notice where you might feel a charge in your energy field, in your body, in your thoughts. And just know that it's all okay. You just witness and watch the emotions passing through you as much as you're able to, without judging yourself. This exercise is not a reason to judge yourself and beat yourself up for having emotions. It's totally normal and natural to have emotions. So the point of the exercise is noticing, being aware of the thoughts, the emotions passing through you, and to remember that they're not who you are. You are pure awareness. The thoughts and the emotions are just passing through and leaving. Okay. So here we go with the list of polarities. Pro-choice versus pro-life. For anyone who may not know, this polarity is about women being able to choose to have a legal abortion. And as I said at the beginning of the call, it's especially up in the U.S. right now. Well, just feel that in your body, in your field, energetic field. And just give it a few moments before I name anything else. So I'm just going to keep moving along here just for the sake of time. You might want to do this exercise again later with the recording if you need more time. Having guns versus not having guns. That's also an issue that's up in the U.S. right now. Just feel it in your body, feel it in your energy field. Notice what happens. Notice if your mind gets very active or your emotions. Whatever happens is okay. You're just noticing it, that's all. No right or wrong. liberal versus conservative. Notice any judgments or feelings in the body. War versus peace. And that also includes who is to blame for a war. Blame versus innocence, perhaps, is the polarity. Just noticing. Just releasing. Russia versus the United States and Europe. You could also make this one China versus the US and Europe. Just breathing. Just watching what happens. The next one is NATO versus the rest of the world. Kind of the same thing. The next one is vaccines versus no vaccines. Just feeling whatever emotions or thoughts come up, letting them go. The next one is wearing masks versus not wearing masks. Just feeling what's happening inside you, breathing through it, letting go. And in a way, I'm sorry to be moving so fast because I'm sure we could take a long time with this exercise, but for the sake of time, I'm going to keep moving. People of color versus white people. The colonizers versus the colonized. Rich versus poor. Male versus female. Humans versus the rest of the natural world. So, okay. That's the exercise. I invite you to remember the witness now, whatever happened for you, to just hold on to that neutral witness part of you, the place inside of you that is at the fulcrum of the seesaw, the transcendent awareness, to the best of your ability. And it's okay if you can't or weren't able to, that's totally fine. It's just an exercise in witnessing whatever you're feeling. So I wonder how you did with that. I wonder if you were able to get through the list without jumping up and running around the room screaming. So where were you able to hold the tension between the polarities, and where did your mind and emotions jump into action? Where did you, where did you judge? Where was one side right and the other wrong, or good and bad? Where did you feel reaction in your body? So it's good to journal about, and just again, to be clear, I'm not saying that it's not okay to have emotions and reactions. We're not talking about trying to be in the neutral witness state by suppressing our emotions, because that does not work. The important thing about it is to be real. It's just to be honest with ourselves and to notice where we feel emotionally charged, and then or where we have judgments, and then you name those emotions and you let them pass through to the best of your ability. And sometimes we're good at that, and sometimes we're not so good at it, and it's all okay. It's just a learning. So the most important thing about that exercise is just to be mindful and aware of the thoughts and emotions. Not about not having them, it's about noticing them, allowing them, and practicing letting them pass through. And like the word says, it's a practice. This is ongoing. Even if you've been on a spiritual path for many, many years, this, I speak from personal experience, and I know most people are in this boat. We're all practicing this. It's the practice du jour, isn't it? So for anyone who might be feeling very emotional about the recent Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe versus Wade, I expect that you might be wondering, what the heck is Brad talking about? I mean, how can we pretend to be neutral about this? If you were on the call last month, I talked about the highest spiritual teaching being about freedom, and that we incarnate to experience freedom in the body. It's one of the purposes for our incarnation. And we talked about, this whole thing of governments being allowed to dictate what we do with our bodies. And so it would be normal, it would be natural to feel angry or feel grief or feel fear or whatever you're feeling. And if that's the case, the question for us then is, how are you doing with witnessing that? How are you doing with witnessing your outrage or your sadness or your fear or whatever it might be? When it's very intense, how are you doing with remembering that you're not your emotions, and that, allowing them to pass through? So I'd love to hear from you. If you want to write to me to let me know, I would love to know. You can always reach me at courses@corelight.org. So I also want to add here, just to be clear, I'm not saying that it's not okay to use our minds and to have judgments. You might have spent a lot of time contemplating these issues and doing research and getting informed about the different sides of any of the polarities that I've mentioned in the exercise, and formulating your own opinions. And that's important. It's very important. I mean, I know I do that, and when we do this with a witness, and we do it with love and with a higher mind, it's called discernment. It's about using our higher mind to find the truth and to develop wisdom. And discernment and wisdom and finding the highest truth, those are very high spiritual principles that we're here on earth to develop. So I would add, though, that it's also true that if we're using our logical minds and the research we do to try to be right about something and to try to make other people wrong or to judge other people, and if we've got a lot of really sharp opinions based on all of that, then that's not what I'm talking about. That's different from practicing witnessing and discernment. Have you ever been around people who've got a lot of sharp opinions and judgments and who are essentially intolerant of other people? It's really hard to be around people like that. If you're sensitive, you know it's hard because you feel the energetic projections. They judge you, they project energy at you, and it's draining to be around them. It's like the judgments and the opinions are poking holes in your aura, and it literally drains the light right out of you. It's much easier to be around people who are practicing witnessing and who are more in their hearts and in the higher mind and who have tolerance and respect for people whose opinions might be different. And so just to be clear, I'm not saying that it's not right to get angry and go march in the streets. If that's what you feel called to do, that might be really important for you to do, and that's great and perfect for some people. But for others, it's not how they're wired. And it's just completely up to each person to choose how they want to express themselves. I can imagine that there's going to be a lot of protesting happening in the U.S. because the Supreme Court has more or less said that they're going to continue to overturn other opinions that have been passed by the previous more liberal-leaning Supreme Courts, and it's great for people to protest if that's what they're called to do. I know I've done a lot of it in my past, and I really enjoyed expressing my anger in that way. It was very productive and supportive, and sometimes that's how change gets created in our world. So I feel like what we need to come back to here is to see what's happening on the planet right now is that our emotions are waking up more and more. It feels to me like thousands of years of feminine rage and grief and sadness and fear and, all of the emotions around disempowerment, around victimization, they're all going to be coming out. And it's not just women. This is also for men who are sensitive, for men who are developing their feminine side as well. And I know we've all had I'm sure most of us have had lifetimes as both men and women. So it's like, we both have male and female inside of us. I know that it's an intense and challenging time, but the truth is that it's also a time to celebrate. Because this is a part of the awakening. This is a part of the healing of that victim-tyrant polarity. This is a time when we're learning to take back our own projections of power onto an outside authority. And I know I talk about this frequently, that if you could name one process that's holding the whole world back from entering the new paradigm of the heart, it's the victim-tyrant consciousness. So it's no surprise that we're all working on it. Here we are. It's the perfect time to be working on this. So, for example, you might find that as you do this processing, you're processing that part of you that might, maybe it's the little child, right? The little child inside that's being shut down by your parents, by your father, or your mother. And if so, this might be your opportunity to practice feeling outrage at injustice and the feeling of being victimized and so forth. And if that's what's coming up for you, it's fantastic. And it's best to write about it and process it in a journal or do whatever kind of emotional clearing work you like to do. What you don't want to do is be blaming and directing it at a person. So that's a bigger conversation. So let's just press pause on this conversation for right now. I want to come back to it later. We will come back to it because it's a very paradoxical situation, and I think we need to talk more about paradox before we can continue this part of the conversation. So just give me a second. I'm going to take a sip of water here. Okay. So even if we might be feeling a lot of anger or grief or other emotions passing through us, the first step on the path to the unconditionally loving heart, the permanently opened heart, is beginning to have tolerance for other people. It's about recognizing that each side has validity, at least for the people on that side. And I want to be super clear about this, so I'm going to say that again. We're talking about recognizing that each side has validity, and I mean for the people who are on the one side. So in other words, if you put yourself in their shoes, the opposite side's shoes, and if you had lived their life exactly as they had lived it, you would have the same viewpoint they do. You would have the same arguments that they have and the same facts to back up your opinions and the same belief that you're right. And I know we might try to tell ourselves that we wouldn't, that we would have come out differently somehow. But if you think about it, that would actually be very arrogant. That would be making ourselves superior somehow, and they're inferior. We'd be saying that given the same circumstances, well, I would have turned out better, and that's arrogance. So I feel like that's an important point to meditate on. So we're talking about tolerance, and that means that we need to try to find our common ground with people who are on the other side of a polarity. So let's just take our example we're using. If we look at the issue of abortion rights, one side believes that women should have the freedom to choose what's right for their own body, and the other side feels like it's about murdering innocent babies. So, of course, it's supercharged, and it's a perfect example of how each side has plenty of reasons to believe they're right and that the other one is wrong, or at least the other one is misguided. And at worst, they're evil, and everybody on all sides believes they're right. So if we're practicing witnessing and we're trying to find tolerance for the other side and trying to walk that highest path, which is the path of heart-centeredness, how can we approach this? And I feel, for me, to find tolerance, it's important to begin with trying to find some common ground between the two sides of any polarity. In other words, we find what we can agree on. So, for example, it might be in this situation, it might be something like, we all love children. We all love life. We all love freedom over our own bodies. So that's common ground between both sides. And so holding those kinds of affirmations and this energy of tolerance would be a beginning. It would be a way of holding a tension between the two sides of the polarity And it would be a way of holding the paradox inside of us, you know, allowing for the contradiction that's inherent in the situation, and holding space for the third option, the transcendent option, to manifest and to resolve the polarity. So another example that's up in the collective right now, at least in the U.S., as I mentioned, is gun rights. It's about the right to own guns versus making gun ownership illegal. And one side feels like it's about protection and safety, and the other side feels it's about freedom and protecting constitutional rights. And again, it's supercharged, you know, because especially because of all the school shootings, and especially the recent one at the elementary school in Texas that happened just after the last spiritual weather report call. And I know that we all have so much compassion for the children and the parents involved there and involved in any school shooting, you know. In any war, in any place where guns are involved. And so God bless all of us. God bless all of them. And like the abortion rights example, both sides have a lot of valid reason to believe that they're right and the other's wrong. And it's rare that one side has tolerance for the other. You know, we're always being invited into judgment and division on this. So what might be some of the common ground to help us find tolerance for the other side on this example? Can you think? It might be similar to the previous one, you know. We all love children. We all love life. We all love freedom. And we could add to that list, we all want to feel safe. We all love the feeling of safety. We all disapprove of murder. So, you know, in the end, we're all in agreement on what we want. But there's a huge disagreement about how to get the result that we want. And so to my mind, I think that's a critical realization. So I just want to say it again, because, you know, once we realize this, we've begun a path towards tolerance. So it's the acknowledgement that everybody agrees on the what part of the equation, but we disagree on the how part of the equation. We agree on what we want, we disagree on how to get there. So maybe that's a start. Maybe we can all practice holding these affirmations, you know. Maybe that's our way of holding the tension between the two sides of the polarity and allowing for that third transcendent option to manifest. And if you want to take this a step further, between now and next month's call, I invite you to do squares and triangles on any of those polarities that we named in the exercise. It's a fantastic exercise to be doing. And if you're brand new to Corelight and you don't know what the squares and triangles are, they're just simple journaling techniques that we teach that are incredibly powerful tools for shifting your consciousness and healing your egoic mind. And Leslie and I wrote about them in our book, The Marriage of Spirit, which is available on our bookstore at corelight.org. So I won't go into it here because most people already know about that. And wherever you are on the journey, whether you're new or you've been on the path for a long time, hopefully that exercise of witnessing the polarities helped a little bit to become a little more self-aware. No matter how long you've been on a spiritual path, I wonder if you noticed places where you felt charged. And if you did, it's a great time to apply the processing tools and to take whatever the next step might be to clear and heal those aspects of consciousness. And as I said, I'd love to hear from you. If you had any insights or if you had an experience that you want to share, it always helps me to know. So please email me at courses@corelight.org if you feel called to. Love to hear from you. And I just want to add here that I realize that these two examples that I've shared, the abortion rights and the gun rights, these are two of the things that are up in the U.S., but I know every single country in the world has its own version of some kind of polarizing issue coming up. If it's not abortion or gun rights, then it's something else. And every country has its own flavor of shadow arising. I know there are many people from many different countries all over the world participating on these calls and in the Correlate community. So you've got your own examples of how this is playing out for you. And no matter where we live, next month it's going to be something different. This is not stopping. Have you noticed? There's no place on earth we can go right now to escape the polarization and the shadow that's rising up. It's continuous and it's revolving and evolving. And the truth is, like I said, this is a great sign. I mean, I know it's not fun, and I'm not trying to make light of pain and suffering. That they're very real for people when these issues come up. It's hard. And we have many people whose lives are affected in a negative way. And it's about holding our hearts open in compassion. That's an essential practice with all of this. But I'm just saying that we also have to remember that when these shadow aspects rise up and collectively we're forced to look at them and talk about them and shine a light on them and heal them, this is how the awakening is happening. It is what's happening. We're in the midst of the mass awakening process. And it can look really ugly and really shadowy. And yet, it's an essential part of the journey, It's like what Leslie taught us from day one. It's all about making the unconscious conscious. We're shining a light on the dark places, and we're doing whatever we can do to transmute them inside ourselves. And it's not necessarily fun, but it's a necessary part of the awakening process. And I know that we all know this from our personal journeys. So let's just go back to talking about paradox, because it's one of the topics I was guided to focus on this month, and it's super important. So I'm just going to take another sip of water before we talk about paradox. Excuse me. So in Zen Buddhism, paradox is it's got a really important role to play. And we talk about koans, if you've heard of Zen koans. Those are examples of paradox. And some of the classic examples are, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there, it doesn't make a sound. And I know this is cliche and you might be laughing, but it's the truth. This is a great example of paradox, You can make the sound of two hands clapping, but what is the sound of one hand? And koans are specifically designed in Zen Buddhism to stop the mind, to throw it off its logical track. And then when that happens, you begin to cognize the mystical nature of reality. So it's through confronting a paradox like this that we learn to grasp mystical awareness. So paradox is not about going through the ordinary logical mind, but it's about grasping mystical awareness with our whole being, as opposed to just the mind. So we can't solve problems in the way we normally do. After we grapple with the riddle of a koan for a long time, we reach this mental blockade, and the mind is just full of doubt and confusion, and there's this tension that's created in the mind. And it's like holding the tension between the polarities that we talk about all the time on these calls. The mind somehow shuts down, and eventually something else emerges, a new awareness. And, we gain a whole new perspective on a situation that way. And that's when new solutions and new understandings become available to us. So we've spoken about paradox before, but I think it's important to name it here. And that is that paradox is one of the traditionally feminine powers. The ancient Taoists considered paradox to be one of the traditional yin qualities. And the opposite, the yang equivalent or the masculine equivalent of paradox would be logic. So I think the reason that I was guided to talk about paradox this month is because we're in a time where logic and reason are not going to solve the problems that we're facing. We're dealing with situations that are paradoxical, where both sides think that they're right, because they all have their facts to back up their opinions. And reasoning is not going to be the way out of this one, because we're dealing with paradox. And another pair of opposites that we're dealing with here is emotion and mind. These are also two of the classic yin-yang polarities. The two situations that we just talked about, abortion rights and gun rights, these are supercharged with emotion. And emotion is one of the traditional yin/feminine principles. So the mind would be the yang or masculine principle. So again, the mind is not going to get us out of this one because we're dealing with emotion. Have you ever tried to convince somebody of anything with logical reasoning when they're in an emotional state? 2 years of COVID will tell us we all tried that and it doesn't work. One side cannot convince the other. It's because it's not about logic, it's about emotion. So we're dealing with paradox and emotion, which are two of the feminine principles, yin principles, and it's important to acknowledge that we're being called to the empowerment of the feminine right now. And we talked about this last month, and it's an important reminder because it's still up in the collective, and I have a feeling it's going to be with us for quite a while. So last month I mentioned the story of what Leslie's guide said to her when she asked them what it was going to take to change the world. And they said a lot of enlightened women. And what they meant was not just that it's important for women to wake up, but it's important for the feminine side in general to become empowered. And that's both in women and in men. And that's what's happening. The divine feminine will awaken within us as we heal the victim-tyrant consciousness in us. I feel like I need to say that again, so I'm going to repeat what I just said. The divine feminine will awaken within us as we heal the victim-tyrant consciousness within us. And that's the birth of the new paradigm of the heart in the collective as we all do this. So we can all be reminding ourselves during the coming month that it's important to get comfortable with paradox and emotion. And let's give them the focus and the power they deserve, because these are very powerful forces. And I know for some people, especially men, that can be hard. But it's such an important aspect of what we're working on right now. And it's really good to name it so that we can witness any discomfort that we might be having around paradox and emotion. And so we witness it and we just process it and we let it go. So we're talking about a new paradigm approach to the paradox of endless arguments, unsolvable problems. The old paradigm, the victim-tyrant consciousness paradigm, would have us debate these issues forever and go back and forth like a ping pong match, and we get stuck in the polarization. So it feels like we're in a process now of opening to new ways of seeing all of the polarized situations that we seem to be stuck in. And paradox helps us to see a bigger picture here. It helps us to think differently about these issues. And it can help us to literally redefine and reframe the arguments themselves. And as long as we're stuck in the old victim-tyrant consciousness, we're going to remain polarized and stuck in that system of separation. So I want to read something to you. A friend of mine wrote an article this past month, and he says it so well. So I'm not going to explain any further. I'm just going to read to you. So it's very short. Excuse me, I'm going to have some more water. The main reason, and this is the article I'm reading to you, the main reason I shy away from taking a side in debates around abortion, guns, and other current topics is that by engaging the debate, I implicitly accept the terms that frame the debate and affirm that this is indeed what we should be talking about right now. By my participation, I bring attention to this question, and I deflect it from that question. Not that this question is unimportant, but quite often the debates that our system allows onto the stage are those that serve the preservation of the system, whichever way they're resolved. I'd rather bring attention to the things that we take for granted and to the people, places, and beings who are left out. Imagine we live in a prison. The warden says, okay, food rations are being reduced. We have to decide whether to give more food to the older prisoners who are in more fragile health or to the younger prisoners who have more life ahead of them. A furious debate ensues, with each side making valid moral appeals and sophisticated logical arguments. All the while, what is not talked about? Well, things like, why must the rations be cut? Why aren't we allowed to have prison gardens? Why are we in prison to begin with? If the warden successfully defines the debate, his power will never suffer challenge. He has contrived a debate that can never end because, in fact, both sides are right. So my friend Charles Eisenstein wrote that, and I felt like it applies so well to our topic today. That's why I wanted to read it to you. I really love this example he gives of the prison warden forming the debate. And doesn't it feel like that's what's happening to us? You know, this prison analogy is a really good one because we're talking about the prison of the ego, or the prison of the separate system, the prison of the patriarchal system. And Ram Dass used to also make a similar analogy when he talked about doing egoic clearing work. He said it's not about rearranging the furniture inside the prison. Doing egoic clearing work is instead, it's like taking down the walls of the prison and opening up to a whole new reality. And this is what's happening to us right now. We're taking down the prison walls and we're opening up to a whole new reality. So by holding the tension between the sides of the polarities, and by holding the tension that is inherent in this paradox of everybody being right, we're reframing the debate. We're not letting the prison warden in the system of separation define a never-ending debate. We're starting to ask these questions that are like the Zen koans. Why are we in prison in the first place? Why do we have a government with the authority to control us? Why aren't public servants serving us instead of controlling us? What's reality like on the other side of the prison walls? Is there even going to be a debate if enough people are living in the new paradigm of the heart? If we're putting love first, won't all of those issues just drop away naturally? So as we move more and more into the new paradigm of the heart, these are the kinds of polarized situations that are going to arise so that we can process them and find our courage to stand up and say, no, this is not okay. You know, this is not the debate to be having. And to do it non-violently, you know, to do it with a full heart. It's like the mother lion that protects her cubs from an attacker with so much love. And that's the rise of the divine feminine power. It's just like that. It's very loving and protective. And these are the kinds of questions we need to be asking if we're going to, you know, reframe our own debates and not allow the system of separation to frame the debate. And as long as enough of us shift our consciousness, the debates are going to get reframed. And it's already happening. It's happening right now. And that's a great thing. So gosh, I'm looking at the time, and I'm going to wrap up here so we can go to our questions and sharing. So what am I going to say to you? Feels like as we move through this time of enormous shadow, it's also super important to remember that there's nothing wrong. I mean, it's easy to feel like something is terribly wrong. And at one level, it does look terribly wrong. But the truth is, the ultimate truth, the higher truth, the truth of the capital T, is that nothing is wrong. It's a very difficult time, yes. And especially for those of us who are sensitive. You know, our hearts just hurt when we see what's happening in the world with all of the injustice and the destruction and what have you. But remember, we chose to be here for this time. We chose to incarnate right now. So it's perfect in that we're here to shine a light on the shadow and to have these experiences and to learn and grow from them and to be the ones to help midwife the new paradigm of the heart. It's coming. You know, it's like the baby's head is crowning. It's coming and there's no stopping it. The divine feminine power, it's I talk about it. The divine feminine power is rising and it's going to unseat the current imbalances. It's going to balance out that unbalanced masculine energy. So it's very important to remember that where the shadow is the darkest, the light is also the brightest. And this is a very necessary phase of our awakening process. It's not necessarily the easy part or the fun part, but if you're really down in the muck and grappling with a lot of shadow, it's essential to remember that this is just temporary. It's not always going to be so shadowy, but we're in the midst of it. We're in the midst of the crumbling of the old systems. And that's a great thing. It's just not always easy. So we have to remember that the falling apart is necessary for the new forms to birth and for the light to emerge in a new way, in a brighter way. And I guess I want to say, so as I talk about every month, it's also essential to remember that we need to spend whatever time we can in the light. We need to do the things that raise our vibration, that keep our hearts open as much as we're able to. We need to be in joy as much as we possibly can. We're being asked by Spirit to keep our vibration as high as we possibly can. And that's our gift. That's our greatest gift to the planet right now. So if you're not able to find the higher vibratory emotions, if you're not able to find love and joy in anything, at least we can find ways of developing inner peace. And we can do all of these things in very simple ways, like remembering to practice our self-care every day, taking walks in nature, hugging trees, talking to animals, meditating, You know the list: getting a massage, exercising, laughing. Laughing, it's probably one of the most important things of all, because it's really just a state of enlightenment when we laugh. You know, there's no mind, no thoughts, just joy. So just doing all these things that you know that bring you peace and joy. There's so much more, but I want to move on. Sorry. So we're going to move on to the questions and the sharing, and I'm just going to take another sip of water. So excuse me for a sec. Okay. So first of all, I just want to thank everybody so much for the excellent questions and the sharing. You know, I always get such beautiful questions and sharing, and I really appreciate hearing from you. And I certainly don't claim to have all the answers, but by writing, you help me attune to what's going on. So again, as I've said, please contact me, please share, please ask questions. If you're new, the way this works is you send your questions in advance to courses@corelight.org. And if you're on the web call, you can type in your questions on the Q&A board, and those will be for next month's call. It's not possible for me to answer all the questions, but I do read them all, and I get to as many of them as I can. And so just know that if your question doesn't get answered here, it might get answered next month, or, you know, if it doesn't get answered by me, then an answer always comes from somewhere. And it can be from another teacher or a dream or a book or in meditation or whatever. I also just want to acknowledge from some of the sharing that I've received that I know that there's a real longing for community, especially with the last couple of years of isolation. Everybody's ready to be reconnected, and with the intensity of the world right now, we all want to connect with each other because it's so healing to be in a community. You know, humans are community oriented. That's who we are. So just so you know, we're planning to have an online forum in the Spiritual Warrior Training course. Sorry, I forgot the name for a second. And later on, hopefully, we're going to have a membership community. We hope and pray, where there will be a forum for connecting with each other as a community. And I'm also looking forward to returning to in-person events whenever the time is right for that. I hope it can be soon, maybe next year, you know, hoping we can have some retreats in different parts of the world. So please stay tuned for that. There's nothing like being in the same room together physically. But for now, you know, we still have to be satisfied with what we have. And it truly is amazing technology, isn't it, that we can be on a call like this together in community virtually. Okay, the first question is from Julia, and it's a two-part question. Number one, could you share some thoughts about our beloved animal companions passing, please? Is there a right time to die? What about euthanasia? Is it better not to euthanize and to share this final time by tending to my pet with love? Or is it better to euthanize and help her avoid the pain that she may suffer? The second part of the question is on a broader note. Do religion and spiritual traditions need to evolve and change? I ask this because, like science, I see them as anthropocentric. For example, the belief that a human being is the most evolved. What do you think about this? Is something wrong with that? Something missing? Some information missing or misunderstanding? So great question. Thank you, Julia. I just want to say that I can feel your love and compassion for the animals, and I get a sense that you have a very, very big heart. So I'm with you on that. And as far as euthanasia goes, my personal opinion is that there aren't any rules to this. I've been asked this question before, and what I always suggest is for people who are facing that decision is ask your pet. Ask your pet what your pet wants. ask the pet what would be most supportive and see what your pet tells you. And very often, the situation is way too emotional for the pet's person to get clear guidance. So usually you need some help from somebody who's good with interspecies communication. And if you don't know somebody, I can recommend a directory. There's a directory online of very highly respected interspecies communicators, and it's at animaltalk.net. Animaltalk.net. If you go to the homepage, you'll see a part of the menu includes Animal Communication Directory. And that's the website of Penelope Smith, who is considered to be like the grandmother of the modern day interspecies communication movement. My friend Anna Breitenbach really recommends her highly. And my experience is that the pet is usually very surrendered to its situation. Pets don't see death in the same way that we humans do. There's so much emotion wrapped around death for us humans, and animals just don't have that. They appreciate having conversations about death and being asked if they want support in leaving, but it's not the big drama that we make it out to be. Animals can come and go very easily from their bodies. And very often pets are mostly aware of the distress that their human is in. They mostly want to reassure their human and help the human to be okay. But regardless of whether you choose euthanasia or not for your pet, it's always such a blessing to be able to spend the final part of their lives very close to them and, just showering them with love if that's an option. So yeah, it's okay to choose euthanasia if you think that's best. And especially if your pet communicates that they want help leaving, which they can do, So your second part of the question is about anthropocentrism, which means it's the viewpoint that humans are at the center of everything. And that definitely has to change, and it's going to change, and it's already changing. You don't have to look very far to see that. You just look at how popular interspecies communication has become, right, in just the past few years. I mean, our friend Anna Breitenbach has made a huge difference with that. Her video about Spirit the Black Leopard has over 7 million hits. And I wonder if you saw My Octopus Teacher on Netflix. That won the Academy Award for Best Documentary last year. So people are really starting to wake up. They're waking up to the depth of our connection with the natural world. More and more people are realizing that we share the planet with these extraordinary, excuse me, I'm going to have some more water. So I was saying that people are starting to wake up more and more, realizing that we share the planet with these extraordinary beings. The animals, the plants, the forests, the oceans, all the different ecosystems, the whole of the natural world. And so, regarding science and religion, you're talking about the structures. You're talking about the forms of the patriarchal system. Or the system of separation, whatever you want to call it. And yes, the answer is yes, all of these things are going to be changing. The idea of religion as we know it is going to change completely. For about 6,000 or so years, for the age of patriarchy, religion has been about putting our spiritual power outside of us and projecting it onto an authority. Usually it's an authority figure like a priest or a man. It wasn't always that way, though. In the cycle before this one, women were the priestesses, and they held the spiritual power. And that cycle was a lot more in touch with our human connection with the earth. In fact, that was a time when people worshipped Gaia, the mother, great Earth Mother, and people revered fertility. And a lot of indigenous tribes people today still have some of that quality in their culture. They revere all life forms. They see the trees and the mountains and all the animals and, the whole of the natural world. They see them as our brothers and sisters. So many of the Native American tribes call the trees the tree people, and they call the mountains the mountain people, and so on. And they add people after the name because they see that we're all a part of the same family. And they see that humans are not superior to the rest of the natural world. And they talk about this as the spirit that moves in all things. And this is where we're all headed. We're all moving in the direction of that understanding and living that way. So the more we learn to pull our projections of power and authority off of the outside world, especially off anybody in a position of power or a system that we've given our authority away to, humanity is going to begin to more and more return to that understanding. We're already returning to this place. We're going to become a lot less anthropocentric, and we're going to learn to live by the laws of nature again, and we're going to be rediscovering our own inner divinity. I think that's the key. When we discover our inner divinity, that's a huge step in pulling the projections of power off the outside, because we see that we have it inside us. We don't need to go outside for it. And so the systems that are the forms of our current paradigm, like science and religion and medicine and government and money, education, all the rest, it's all going to change. It's all going to change. And this is not, a lot of people hear that and they think it's like a new age fantasy or magical thinking. And it's just not true. You can already see that the forms aren't working. They're falling apart. And more people are starting to wake up to this truth. And so as more people wake up, the forms of the world are going to reflect that inner reality. Because that's all it is. That's all the physical world is. It's the manifestation of our own unconscious self. So as we change, the world changes. So all that being said, I think it's also important, Julia, to acknowledge that humans are a very evolved and unique species on the planet because of the way that our brain and our spine and our nervous system and our chakra system all work together. We have tremendous capacities, and more so than most of the species on the planet. But I would be very careful about comparing and about calling humans the most evolved or anything like that. I don't think you can make that comparison. The other life forms that we share the planet with, they're extraordinary in their own way. And some of them, in some ways, have more capacities than humans do. You just look at the dolphin's capacity for echolocation, right? Or, a dog's capacity for smell, or an elephant's capacity to remember and to communicate over vast distances. I've had personal experiences of an elephant remembering Leslie and me from many, many, many years before. The elephant told Leslie that, and then we realized how it happened. Anyway, so those are, capacities. Like we all have these different kinds of capacities, but in the end, we're all one. We're all made of the same stuff, stardust, and we've all got the same essence. We all share the planet. We're breathing the same air. So yes, to answer the last part of your question, there's definitely a lot missing from most religions. There are definitely huge misunderstandings there. Like, for example, in the Bible, maybe when God gave humans dominion over the earth, it might have been a mistranslation. or misunderstanding, I suppose, at best, or at worst, a power grab. But whatever it was, probably the way that it needs to be reframed now is about the Creator giving humans stewardship of the planet. And I think that's what we're returning to. We're leaving the anthropocentrism and the domination part behind, and we're moving more into a stewardship role. We're learning to care for the earth, care for its life forms, and to know at all the levels of our being that we're just one part of this amazing web of life. I hope that helps. Thank you for your great question, Julia. The next question is from Anne-Sophie. And I'm summarizing this one because there were several parts, and I wanted to thank you, Anne-Sophie. I read your whole message, and I will try to get to another part of it next month if I can. But here's what we have for this month. I'm just going to take another sip of water. Excuse me. Okay. Anne-Sophie writes, some themes of the previous spiritual weather reports have included service and love. To summarize, I lost everything in a big life cleanse 2 years ago. Job, partner, body, hobbies, identity. That led to a Satori experience. I know that cleaning/purification of my ego filters may be needed in order to create a new emergence of my life. But adding to egoic processing techniques, here are some questions about service and love. Number 1, how do we embody more love? How do we raise our frequency in order to be, capital B, lighter? So being as opposed to doing. Number 2, how do we become clearer in order to become a vessel for what's meant to pour through us? Number 3, how do we become conduits and vessels for the seeds of personal and collective realities to birth and bloom? Number 4, how do we collaborate with vaster and wiser aspects of creation and get out of the way to create new emergence of us and of what wants to be created, which is the doing part? So thank you, Anne-Sophie. I love your questions. These are very important questions. I'm so happy you asked them. And yes, clearing the ego is one of the best ways to create from a clear place. And there are other ways as well, of course. Meditation being one of the most important practices that I know, of course. But whatever you can do to create more inner peace is good. So any methods that teach you how to do that are very important. Learning to hold on to your light and to not get drained is very important. I get the sense that you would benefit from one of Leslie's teachings, which she called impeccability. And the impeccability teachings, they outline a lot of practical steps that you can take that help you to build your light and hold on to your light. And that's offered in the Spiritual Warrior training course, which is coming up soon, as I mentioned. Impeccability is part of that course. So as I said, we hope that's going to start in September or October. We'll keep you posted. But the Spiritual Warrior training course also offers a lot of teachings about how to open the heart and about how to stay in the heart more permanently. And it's important to be able to know how to do this. It's a lot about knowing when you're in your heart and when you're not in your heart. Because when we live from the heart, the world becomes such a beautiful place. And, everything seems to be filled up with love. And that's when things really begin to change in your world, and you manifest all of the things that you really most desire that will bring love into the world and love into your life. So when we learn to do that, we're able to smile more. We're not as vulnerable as we used to be. And when we develop the heart, we learn to be unselfish. We start to have more humility. We become more compassionate and more generous. We're able to forgive more. So these are some of the qualities of the heart, and they lead us into living our soul's highest purpose. The heart is the gateway to that. The heart is literally the gateway to the soul. And I think I'm saying this because I think this is where your questions are directed. I think you feel this at some level of your being. It's like we all know this. But to name it and to have techniques to do it are very helpful. So learning to keep your heart open is a lot about becoming more conscious of monitoring yourself. It's learning to monitor yourself and to keep bringing your attention back to your heart after you realize you've dropped out of it. You know, that's the process. So in the Spiritual Warrior course, we also teach about releasing the obstructions, you know, that prevent us from opening the heart. So you literally learn to open your heart, and with practice, you learn to keep it open more and more. So these are just some of the ways to learn how to embody love. And eventually, that's what the path is. It leads to becoming love. And that's when you discover that you're literally made of love. You have the experience of just being love and living love and knowing it in your body, all your cells. And the you that you used to know as you is out of the way. It's from a new place, a very clear and loving place that you manifest and you create and you do. And whatever you do from that place is your service. It's the state of consciousness that you hold. That becomes your manifestation. That's your service. So literally you become this vessel that you were always meant to be. And at that point, it doesn't even really matter what you do because it's your state of being that's the service. But the doing part, of course, that happens. You know, you create and you do and you spread love and you bring the light around and you have many doings. And in your being, you bring that love and light into the doing. And then you asked about your personal reality. So your personal reality, the world around you, it reflects that love back to you. So literally in your own world, you are living in a new paradigm of the heart. The love is all around you and it becomes your reality. So no matter what challenges you face, you're meeting them with love. No matter what service you're offering, it's an act of love. And when enough of us are living in that state, you start to see the collective consciousness reflecting this. And the physical world begins to change more and more and more. And we're already starting to see this happening, as I was talking about earlier. So I hope that answers your question. I could go on, but I thank you for asking such a beautiful question, and I do feel your radiant heart, and I honor you on this path, and I hope to see you in the Spiritual Warrior course. I think it would be very helpful for you if you feel called to join. So you can stay tuned for more information about it. And I'm so sorry, there's another question or two, but we're out of time. We just ran out of time. So hopefully, I'm sorry if we didn't get to your question, and maybe we can do it next month. So let's close our session today with just a quick prayer or meditation just for a minute. So I invite you to close your eyes and get comfortable and just take a few long, slow, deep breaths. And just let go. Just release anything that got stirred up during our call. Release any tension. Just breathing. I want to thank you for hanging in with me today. I could feel we stirred up some shadow stuff, and sorry about that, but it's all good. You know, I'd like you to now just breathe and let any stirring up, any shadow that's been stirred up, just feel it moving up your body and out your crown chakra. It's almost like visualize your body as made of water. And if there was some hidden shadow, some muck on the bottom, some mud, it got stirred up. The water might have become a little cloudy. And so let's just visualize this shadow stuff, this mud and muck, rising up to the surface and floating away out the top of the head. Just see yourself purifying with this upward moving energy. Comes from the earth, moves up your feet and up your legs, up your torso, up and out the head. And see it going out the crown chakra, being transmuted into pure light, pure love, unified consciousness. See it as a golden white light. It's sparkling. As you breathe and relax, just feel yourself purifying and releasing any shadow or negativity. So we call on Great Spirit, Divine Mother, Father God, Self that we all are. We call on all the guides, the teachers, the angels, all the beings who have surrounded us in the highest love and support today. And we thank you. We bow to you. We're grateful for the love and the light and the opportunity to share the sacred space with each other, to receive such beautiful light in this field that we share. Receive the love. And so I invite you all now to put your attention in the heart center again, as we did at the beginning of the call. Just feel your heart center and feel it opening. You can tap the heart center with your finger if you like, right in the center of the chest. And just feel the heart opening. And feel that love that's inside your chest that bubbles up. Feel it coming out the front of your chest. And also feel it going out the back of the chest, opening the back of the heart chakra. So it's literally a flow of beautiful heart energy flowing through your chest. So feel it. Let's start by feeling it coming in through the front of the chest and passing through the body and going out the back of the heart chakra. And feel how this is like loving the things that we tend to stuff in the unconscious, the things we don't want to look at that are literally behind us. We stuff them behind us. So it's like you're loving that part of you. You're loving those things that you might not necessarily want to look at when you do this exercise. Just allowing this energy of love to pass through your chest and wipe you clean, literally blowing through you. cleaning you out, leaving nothing but love. So just feel it for a moment. Feel how beautiful this is. And you might find yourself getting a smile on your face. And now, as we keep our hearts open, let's visualize us all standing in a circle. There are always a few hundred people from around the planet participating in these calls, whether real time or later. And so let's all see ourselves holding hands in a circle. And let the love energy pour out of your heart into the earth. And let's expand our circle wide enough so that we see the earth is inside our circle. We are literally surrounding the planet with our love, with our circle of love. So I invite you to send your love to Gaia, Mother Earth, and to all her life forms, all humans, all of the natural world, especially those who suffer for any reason. And we're deeply, deeply grateful for this opportunity to share our love, to be together, to be incarnated at this most extraordinary time in human evolution, as we help midwife the new paradigm of the heart, and as we get to share our love with the world. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Alaho. Oh. So I just want to thank you all again. I'm deeply grateful to you for showing up. And I send you all my love and best wishes for the month ahead, and look forward to being with you again next month. And don't forget to write to me. Let me know how you're doing and ask any questions or offer any sharing that you have. Lots of love to you. Bye for now.